Where would you prefer to move to if you have the opportunity? Would you want to go to the US, UK, Australia, Canada, or even any of the European countries? Which of them do you prefer? So I have somebody here who recently just moved from the US to the UK. Even when some of us are planning to move to the US or even to Canada, somebody who has been in the US just left the US to the UK. And then I begin to wonder what exactly is happening. What must have been her reason? Why did she have to move, leave a place where people want to go to move to the UK, where people are trying to leave? Anyway, guys, I should introduce herself briefly and then we'll dive right into the video.
Hi, everyone. My name is Victoria. If you know me as Victoria Fash. I am a YouTuber. I am a resident now in the UK. Like Tochi said, I just moved from the US. My channel is Victoria Fash. I think I already mentioned that. So yeah, it's nice to be here because I've been following Tochi's channel for a while. Sure, her channel was one of the channels I used to sleep on when I decided that I wanted to move to the UK. So it's really nice to be here.
All right. Thank you, Victoria. Thanks for coming. So guys, I don't know if you guys are interested, but me, I really want to know. Victoria, tell us, why did you have to leave the US that everybody wants to move to? And now somebody just left the US and came here to join us in the UK. Please tell us why.
Okay, there's a lot in it, right? I think, and I'm not surprised though, because everyone in the UK that heard or got to find out that I was initially in the US and I moved here, it's the same reaction. Like, why on earth will you move from the US and come to the UK? And I will not lie to you, even when it became apparent that I was going to come here, I was also like, because I've been hearing a lot about the UK, there's a lot of bad, press out there, and I was very skeptical, and I was making a lot of research that was really giving me a lot of anxiety. If you know me, you know I'm a very spiritual person. You know that I don't believe that greatness is in a place. I believe greatness is in you, and I believe wherever I go to, if that's where God meant for me to be, I will prosper there, right? So first of all, yeah, I decided to move from Nigeria because me and my husband realized that, okay, this country was not just producing for us. There are people that are succeeding in Nigeria, but we just knew that it wasn't just working. When you've tried everything, you're talented, you're good, you're dedicated to your job, but the doors are not just opening. So I had a meeting to apply to the US. However, during that time, I also knew that this was going to be temporary because I don't know. I just feel like there are some places that, it's not just for everybody. I think the US is a great place to stay. I think it's, there are people who are succeeding there, who feel at home there. But for me, I just was not feeling okay, right? The US is a very individualistic place, right? It's unlike where we are used to in Nigeria. Every African countries that I've been in, there is always this sense of community. There's always this sense of belonging there. But for me, I just did not feel that way when I was there. But we also have to consider a lot of things, apart from the fact that I knew for certain that this was not permanent. But to me, not permanent meant that I was going to finish my academics or get my degree, and then we can think of where to move to afterwards. I just didn't know that it was going to be as quickly as as it happened. So I and my husband had a plan. We planned that, okay, I would move initially, and then he would join me later. When he comes, we'll start to work our PR to go to Canada, because it's just logical that if you move from the US, you move to Canada or to Australia. No one ever thinks of the UK, and I definitely was not thinking about it.
Yeah,
I wasn't thinking about the UK, not at all. So I came to the US. I started my studies. My husband started his own process to come over to the US. He already got, a date. Oh, getting a date was it was something else. I knew that we prepared ourselves because we've heard a lot of people who had reached out to me personally, trying to get a date for interview. Just even as students, getting a date is hard, not to talk of a dependent. They don't really like you moving to their country to study with your spouse. So, and that's why I always advise that if you're trying to apply for a US visa with your spouse, or you plan for your partner to meet you, it's better you go together. It's either they deny the two of you or they approve you. and they deny him. Eventually, they gave him a date. And I think yesterday was the date they gave him. He applied since last year, and the date they gave him was 1 year after his application. So a lot of things happened. If you're following my channel, you probably know the entire story I had with my roommate. I'll just give a brief overview here. I happened to live with some, I don't even know the word to use, with some ladies, which eventually spiraled into bullying, harassment, spiraled into targeting, to the point where my visa was almost revoked. I was given 5 days to leave the US, during that season, just because of some lies that were told. And when you're moving to a new country, please pray that, for the people. And I prayed, though God knew that I prayed, but I think that everything that happened had to happen for other reasons. Before then, I think it was in Thanksgiving last year in the US that I had a leading that I needed to leave the US, and I was really praying, and God was telling me that I was going to move to the UK. I did not know then that UK was going to change their policy. Everything happened, way before all these new policies started to change. Before then, remember, me and my husband had planned Canada. Canada was the logical option. UK was not logical. People are there saying that there are no jobs. Nigerians are there saying they don't have accommodation. It just didn't make sense to me. So I wasn't really sure. But then again, I started to feel a sense of one of the things that a lot of people would tell you, those in Canada and the UK and the US rather, would tell you is that they face is isolation. And it's true. The US can be very isolating because unlike in the UK here, that people are more kind of friendly, and even if they have like any prejudice towards you, it's not outright. Americans are very direct. If they don't like you, you will know that they don't like you. And also, it's a very individualistic place. You don't find a lot of your people, depending on what area you're staying. I was staying in a predominantly white community. The only people I had were just like my few Nigerians that were in my school. We don't have a lot of Nigerians in my school. I was already feeling that sense of isolation, coupled with all the harassment and everything I was already going through. Was already messing up with my mental health. I just felt like, this is a lot for one person. But again, I wasn't planning the UK. So when everything happened and everything died down and the issue was sorted with the school, it was very clear to me, because at this time, God wasn't just speaking to me, he was speaking to my husband about the same thing. And at the time, of course, I did not have the money to pursue the UK because I did not have the plan. It just came all of a sudden, and the leading was doing now. So I started to apply for schools here, and I got the school, and God made provision for everything. And yeah, I don't go to a state or a country rather because of what people think is happening there. I've seen a lot of people in the US that are stranded, that are homeless, and I've also seen a lot of people that are succeeding. I mean, I have a friend there, she's bought a very big house. She's barely been there for 4 years. Just a year after school, she has gotten a house, she has gotten a car, she's doing so well there. But I also know somebody else that is, trying to move from one place to the other, because it's not everyone that gets sponsorship after school. And if you get sponsorship, it's great, but not everybody gets that. And one other thing that made us decide not to stay in the US initially, that we were planning Canada, apart from the spiritual lead, was also because if my husband came to the US, because I am on a student visa, he cannot work. Like, he cannot do anything unless he wants to do things underground, which we are totally against, because it cannot add to your CV. It's like you're patching up, but we are not about that life. And I know people go there to hustle, but we do that is not just our own lifestyle.
And you're going to struggle as well, because you have to just survive on whatever you make alone.
Exactly. And me as a student, I can only work 20 hours in school. I can't work outside of school unless I'm using the CPT or OPT, and that is after 1 year of completing academic studies. So I have to finish 1 year of my course, because my course is a 2 years course. And then in the second year, I have to get a job that is directly related to what I was studying for me to be approved to work outside of school. And that is a long process. I tell you, people are applying and they don't get approval for a while. It's just a very, very I don't know, the system just makes it difficult for you as an international student to actually settle.
I think that was one advantage the UK had over the US, where they allow dependents to work. Even though now they have totally shut the door for dependents to move, but then it really made sense because, how can you bring a whole human being and you just sit down, not doing anything, and then survive on just 20 hours a week salary?
Within the school. And the school, they don't pay well. They don't even, majority of them pay you minimum wage. So I'm earning minimum wage, which is barely enough for me to, depending on where you're staying. Because when I was in New York, my rent at the time to share in a shared apartment, I was paying $1,000 in a shared apartment. And the salary they were paying me did not reach $1,000. It was just shy of $1,000. However, in my school area where I stayed this time around, my rent and bills were about $500. So imagine I'm earning $800. I'm already using $500 to sort out rent and bills. And then we are left with $300. And then this was in a shared apartment. So if my husband is to come, I have to move out of a shared apartment. We have to get a studio apartment. So definitely whatever I'm earning will not even be enough to get a room or a bedroom apartment or whatever. So that alone was already like a red flag. There were just those little things that made it make sense for me to move out of the US. If you are single, you don't have family, you don't have a husband, I'm telling you, the US is probably the best option for you because it's fully, at least my studies is fully funded. You hardly get that here in the UK. You can get fully funded opportunities in the US. I got a job with my studies. I got a graduate assistantship and I was being paid monthly. If it was just me, I could survive very well. And I knew that because of my experience in Nigeria and also in the US initially, getting a job after school would not be a problem for me. But if you're married, that's where it gets tricky because first of all, your partner coming to join you is already an issue. They almost will not allow you to move with your partner because that is their own assurance that you will come back. Right? I had a lady who we went in the same time. She was pregnant when she went to the US. She didn't know she was pregnant. When she got there, she knew she was pregnant. She has given birth to a child. Her husband has applied for visa 4 times now, and he has been denied all 4 times. You would think that because she has a baby here, that we allow the husband to come to assist, and she knows nobody in the US, right? So you can imagine the mental trauma that it is for her. And I know a lot of married people like that they have to be separated from their partners. I calculated everything. If I was to remain in the US, I was looking at roughly about 4 to 5 years before my partner will come to join me. And that might be okay for a lot of people. But for our own family and the plans that we had, it did not make sense to me if there were other countries that we could move to and we'll be together. So my marriage was one of the biggest reasons, why I decided to move. And also, all the things I've said,
Okay. So generally, because you have lived in the US and now you're in the UK, which do you prefer? Speaking on a general note now. When you have to compare everything that you can think of right now, transportation, feeding, housing, the people, everything. Safety as well, very important.
Oh, God. Don't even let us go into that. When it comes to safety, definitely the UK. Just because the US, sometimes you just go out, you don't know who something might happen to their head. They will just carry gun and start to shoot sporadically. I can't count how many times I've been woken up when I was in school. I'll just wake up because most times my phone is in do not disturb, and I will say, take cover, stay away from your window, get shelter. I'm like, what's going on? I will hear that. One happened very close to my street. Somebody was shooting sporadically on the street. So that happens, and you cannot envision when it will happen. So anyway, so safety, definitely the UK. When it comes to what else? When it comes to housing, I think it's practically the same thing. When it comes to like the cost of living, I think really with the inflation right now, I don't really see a difference between them. I just think that in the UK, I prefer, the food here because the food in the US, sometimes they can be over processed. The chicken doesn't taste like chicken sometimes. I'm just saying this based on my own experience. I'm not saying it's everyone's experience. You have to be careful because, I prefer the food, the feeding, everything here. When it comes to community, Right. Yeah, I do prefer the UK just because, you have the Nigerians around you, you have people that look like you, and you find them everywhere. Unlike the US, they're more social over here, unlike the individualistic nature of the US. But these are all my own opinion. So I definitely prefer the UK. And the fact that I have my husband here, of course, I prefer the UK over the US.
How about payment for jobs? When it comes to pay, jobs that people do and the pay, do you think the US pay better or does the UK pay
I
better?
do Yeah, I do think the US pay better. I think that depending on the job you get, I think the pay is definitely better than over here. I do think so because my husband is working full time, and for his role, I know he'll be earning more if he was in the US.
In the
But
US.
with every other thing that is the compromise, I really don't mind.
So it's good to know. It's good to see somebody that prefers the UK to the US because people have a lot to say. But at the end of the day, what works for Mr. A might not work for Mr. B. So just do what works for you and your family. So that's it. Thank you so much, Victoria, for coming. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. And we appreciate you. You guys, Victoria's channel is Victoria Fash. Do well to visit her channel and show her support. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye-bye.